Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Today, a special morning session. We have the king of comics, the noble of Netflix, Mark Millar. How are you doing?
Doing good, Jan. Thanks for having me on.
Really appreciate you coming by. My first question for sure has to be why? You are a man who has seemingly conquered comics. You could write a story for pretty much anyone at any time. You have sort of set the path of your work being turned into TV and movies. You're executive for Hollywood, but yet you keep coming back to making comics. So I guess the question is, you could be on a tropical beach drinking alcohol out of a coconut. Why come back to comics?
It's funny. I've just been on a tropical beach. I just got back 2 nights ago, and this is the closest thing you'll ever see to a tan from a Scotsman. But I have been away, and I get so bored. I get so bored. I remember somebody said, their ambition was to sit on a beach and watch a sunrise while they're having a margarita or something, right? And I'm like, that's like a holiday, that's like a night. That's not the rest of your life, So one thing I realized when I sold my company was how important it is to keep making comics. I was doing this for free when I was 5 years old, when I just had paper and pens and doing this in the house. And even now at 54, nothing delights me more than sitting making my own comics. I can't stop. I love it.
And so when we had originally briefly spoken on Twitter, you had just announced that you were moving the whole Millarworld over from Image to over to Dark Horse.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of wondering, when you're at your stage where you can more or less choose where you want to go, what are you looking for in a publisher?
The Dark Horse guys, I've always had a really good relationship with, likewise Marvel, DC, and Image, I'm lucky that there's people I like at all these companies, so the Image guys, really great 10 years there and everything, so it was nothing personal or anything I was disappointed with the Image. It was actually just logistical, to be honest, Netflix, who own my company. I sold Netflix Millarworld in 2017. They have a pre-existing relationship with Dark Horse. All the sort of Netflix titles like Stranger Things, The Witcher, all these things all get published through Dark Horse. So having them all in one place from an accounts point of view and all that kind of stuff, it's just, I know it sounds so boring, but it's actually just a little easier. But also at the same time, I'm aware of how good Dark Horse is too. In the bookstore market, I think Image would maybe get the slight advantage in the periodicals. But on the bookstore side of things, Dark Horse are very, very good at selling stuff in. They've got tremendous reach into the mainstream bookstores. So that'll be interesting, especially as more things become movies and television shows and so on, to embrace that mainstream audience. I think Dark Horse could be pretty good for.
That's interesting. A few months ago, you had the 4 comic book shop owners on your channel, Millar Time, which is a great show to check out for anyone. One thing I know, there was one guy, I'm afraid I don't remember which one it was, but he said, we don't have any indies in the store. And this is unfortunately a trend that I've noticed for myself when I go to stores. Marvel, DC, and maybe Image, maybe. Do you think that in the future we're going to see more indies popping up in stores, or do you think that there's still some sort of prejudice overall in the industry?
I think it depends on where the industry is in terms of economic cycles, right? So nobody wants to hear this. Everybody hates it when I say this. But indie comics only do well when Marvel and DC are doing well. It's like cinema. Cinema does really well overall if there's big $2.7 billion grossing Marvel movies in there. The cinema can afford nice new carpets and to fix the toilets if they have an Avengers movie. Yeah. And then they can afford to have an extra screen where they make the P.T. Anderson movie appear, So it's a holistic system, like anything, the market itself is holistic, and we need the big commercial Marvel DC stuff. As much as I don't work there, I haven't for a very long time. I do appreciate the value, because I know when people used to come in and buy X-Men books, they would try, Wildcats and Spawn and all the various early Image books. That's why those books sold 800,000 copies, 900,000 copies, because people were in buying their Marvel and DC. And the tide lifts all ships. So I really think that as the industry has struggled, the big thing that we were talking about in that podcast was Marvel in particular being strong helps everybody, and that's why I was saying to everybody, if you can take the time, take 3 months out, 6 months out, go back and do a Marvel project, try and help your retailer out in some way. Everybody went nuts. All the indie guys were all saying, "Oh my God, we've just escaped the shackles of companies like Marvel and everything." But if you're talking about the direct market, you're really talking about the Marvel and DC market. And if you want to continue with that system, you kind of want to see a healthy Marvel.
You and I are both a little bit older, and when we grew up, comics were ubiquitous. I'm not 100% sure about Scotland, but over here, any petrol station, supermarket, bookstore, newsstand, bus station, airport, they all had comics in them. Whereas now, if it's not a comic book store, I don't even know where you'd buy it. Maybe graphic novels at some of the bookstores. Do you ever think we'll see sort of a time when we go back and you see comics in a larger variety of stores?
I'm going to blow your mind, right? Because my take on this is the complete opposite of you, right? And it's the complete opposite of almost everyone. What you have to remember is that back then, the local grocery store maybe got in 30, if you were lucky, 40 comics, but maybe less every month. And it was usually one of each title. So they ordered as many of Sergeant Rock and Unknown Soldier as they did of Superman and Batman, right? So there was usually one copy of each thing. And your corner store is selling everything, right? It's selling food, it's selling newspapers and everything. So its actual comic section was really small. So if you have to take the industry back to corner stores again, you're talking about guys who've got no interest in comics, and they will just randomly pick, the occasional comic to be there. And you would have to have a cull from the 700 or 800 books a month we've got right now down to about 40 books, which would be disastrous for the industry. So if we went back to that, we'd go back potentially to larger numbers for each comic sold, but the actual range of comics would get extremely narrow, and you would be down to those core titles like Spider-Man, X-Men, Batman, and everything. You wouldn't get a Saga, you wouldn't get a Walking Dead. Nobody would ever take a chance on something like that, So indie comics
That's
would.
True.
So unless something's got 300 or 400 issues behind it, the local grocery store guy didn't trust it. It had to be something done for decades. So anything new has struggled to come through. So I grew up in that period, and I remember it was the same comics that had been around when my dad was a boy, that really were sold in those stores. So my business has been entirely reliant, how many titles have I created? 30, 40 different titles. These none of them would have been given a break in that market. The comic store is the greatest gift we were ever given, and the risk is entirely taken with the retailer, which is amazing too. We sometimes forget that, but back in the old days, they used to tear off the cover, send it back, and it was all returned and everything, whereas now the retailer takes all the risk. And my God, a business would kill to have 2,000 agents out there, like super agents, like retailers out there selling our products. We've got something wonderful with this. I think we get rid of it. We should be very careful.
Definitely. So you've got a number of titles from Millar World. You're coming out. The new ones start, I believe, later this month. And when you're going through, how do you decide what titles you're going to work? Do you constantly feel like, oh, I want to tell more stories about this character, or do you get the itch like, oh no, I want to do something completely new?
And the beauty of kind of doing your own stuff is that you can do what you like, which is great. So if I feel like creating something new, I just go away and do it, and I don't have to check with anyone. Or if I fancy doing a sequel to Nemesis, which we have out next week, then I just write that, which I love. I think I would be impossible to work, within a proper rigid system anymore. If I worked at Marvel or DC or something, it would just be impossible for me now. I think I'm so spoiled. And even Netflix knew the best way to deal with me was just let me do my own thing, So our Millarworld department, exists within Netflix, but nobody bugs us. Everybody just says, just do what you want to do. It was going fine before we bought the company. Just keep doing what you were doing, which is great. So yeah, Next week we've got Nemesis. Next Wednesday, is that the 24th? Got the Nemesis.
Yes.
Yeah. So Nemesis Rogues Gallery, and what I love about Nemesis is it's the complete flip of a superhero comic. So it's like, what if you're focusing on the bad guy and telling the story from his point of view. So instead of a rogues gallery of supervillains, it's a rogues gallery of good people that's out to get him. And this follows on immediately from the events of our big crossover, big game, where Nemesis was smashed to hell by all the good guys in the big game series, all the Millar World characters. They took him down, and this is him coming back and up for revenge. And what he does to get his revenge is great. It's really fun. An amazing artist, by the way, if I can just mention Valerio Giancarlo. He is phenomenal. I mean, he's going to be the next big thing. And sometimes you just get lucky. It's like the person who cast Glenn Powell in Top Gun Maverick. They're just like, you get lucky, you get in there at the beginning of somebody's career, and that's what I feel like with Valerio.
Your helper was very nice to send me a preview copy. The art is fantastic. I don't know. I would almost say like a John Romita Jr. meets Jay Lee kind of a vibe to it. It's absolutely gorgeous.
And in black and white, it's sensational. Look at it. It looks like one of those Marvel magazines from the 70s and 80s, like that John Bolton kind of art or something. It's brilliant. It's got like, it's unlike anything else going on just now. The Italians have got some really great artists at the moment, like just the level of talent coming out of Italy at the moment is phenomenal, and he's a beaut. This guy's a keeper. I'm already planning my next project with him. I'm actually going to start writing it in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, excellent. Slightly off the Millar World topic, one thing I did not realize about you until a few weeks ago is just how much you loved Superman. So right now, as I sit here talking to you, I'm about a 60-minute drive from where Siegel and Schuster wrote Superman back in the 30s. Wow. And, Superman is very much a Midwestern hero from that late 30s, early 40s period. Of course, he's changed a little bit over time, but as a guy who was born a few decades later, who grew up in another part of the world, what is it about that character that you really relate to?
I think as a little kid, the thing I felt with Superman was he was like the best one. When you're a kid, sometimes the best footballer is your favorite footballer. And it's kind of like that with superheroes. It's like, I remember I'd have these discussions in the playground with my friends, and I was kind of unusual. I think that all of my friends at school were into superheroes when I was young. Like, it was never a thing that it was just me. Like, weirdly, everybody in my class was into it. And I think it's because Marvel were doing a big push in the UK at the time, But I remember we'd have these discussions, and it would be like, well, I like Batman. Batman's really cool. He can do this and that. And I'd be like, Batman's just got a cool car. Superman can fly at the speed of light, and it's like, and these are the kind of chats that you have, that Superman was better than everybody else at everything. And when you're a kid, that's really that's cool. And then as you get older, you realize one of the other things you like about Superman is how unique he is, and that he will always do the right thing. Like, other superheroes try and do the right thing, and they'll screw up and all this and try and avenge somebody they've let down or whatever. But Superman just always nails it. And there's something great about that. There's something just so relaxing and reassuring as a child reading that stuff. Plus, the stories can take place anywhere. I love the idea that a Superman story can take place in the future, the past, another dimension, another planet, or in Kansas, So the actual scope is a bit like Doctor Who in that sense. The scope is that the stories can be about anything, anywhere, anytime, which from a writer's point of view is a dream. So I love it, Plus, who doesn't like Superman? He's so nice, isn't it?
That's true. It's hard to go wrong with Superman. I think the best of us is kind of the right way to describe him.
Yeah.
So Mark, I know you're incredibly busy. Just a couple quick announcements, and we'll say our goodbyes backstage. Later tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, I have Soul Finder creator Doug Ernst. Soul Finder is basically the Vatican SEAL Team 6 fighting demons. Tomorrow morning, another early session, 9 a.m. Eastern. CJ Leong, we're talking about his tabletop role-playing game Cloudbreaker Alliance and the differences in story structure between Eastern and Western stories. Thursday night, I will be on Comic Book Radio. 9 p.m., talking about my tabletop role-playing campaign guide, Empire of the Undying Sun. And Saturday on the Dungeon Delvers channel, I will be there on for the Nerd Council of Doom, talking nerdy subjects. So, Mark, thank you very much. I appreciate your coming.
No, it's all good. Okay.
Hopefully, we'll have you back on again.
Please do. All the best then.
All right.
See ya.
Good morning, everyone.